This is the last version of the file upload utility that we'll look at. The major changes involved in this version is that as the server receives each chunk of data, it will periodically send a upload progress message to the client. And when the client gets this upload progress message, it will print it to the console. We actually get a 1% increase or 2% increase, then we will send the message off. If we get more data, but it doesn't cause a single percentage increase, we will not send this message because this message is only displaying in integer percentages anyways. So I've copied over the 1GB.dummy from the previous example, but you can also just generate it by using the create 1GB script. We're going to start our server up, and we'll get this prompt. We're running on localhost. We can actually just ignore it. We'll come back to this in a second, because if we're just sending data from our computer to our computer, we're actually not going out into the internet. So this firewall doesn't actually really matter. We can just leave it completely blocked in this case. But for the next demo that we're going to do, we're going to actually have to go out into the internet. So we're going to have to open up these ports. So I'm going to do node.client, and we will send input slash 1GB.dummy. Okay, so we can see that there's an upload progress on both sides now. That was the main change in this example. But back to this prompt. So what we're going to do next is I have a laptop next to me, and I'm going to send a file to this machine. And then we'll do the reverse. We'll send a file to the laptop. Okay, so you can't really see the laptop, but you'll just see that we'll start up a server and it will just magically be getting data from somewhere. But in order for that to work, we have to unblock it from our firewall. So I need to have this set up to be a public network. And most likely you didn't get this pop-up because you got it already. I'm going to pretend that we set up the most strict settings to refuse it. And again, that doesn't prevent any programs from working if we're using localhost. But now we actually do have to open up the firewalls. So you can, inside Windows, you can go into the search bar and type in allow an app through Windows Firewall. And this will bring up a list of apps that we have. I'm going to hit N to jump to node. Okay. And then over here, we have a change settings option. And this will allow me to, well, I'm just going to remove the setting entirely, and then it's just going to prompt me the next time it's going to use it. But you can also just check this one and then check public, and now I'll do the same thing. Then I'm just going to delete the record, and then now it doesn't know about the node application. So it's not going to block it, it's going to prompt me instead. First, we're going to receive from some external path. So my server file doesn't actually have to change at all. What's going to happen is on the client machine, I've changed the host IP to 192.168.1.151. So everyone has this address, which is reserved for within your own home network. And so this last bit over here, these last two octets are going to be different for each person, but typically this is a 1, and then this one is going to be dependent on the device that you have. In my case, this computer is 151. And I can only use this IP address within my own home local network, which is fine. And the laptop, its IP address is 207. So I'm going to be using that when I send from this client to the laptop server. But the laptop is going to be sending to 192.168.1.151. And I don't need to specify that on my server because the server knows it already. So typically you can find the local IP address of all the connected devices on your home network. by going into the router's admin page. A very common address for this admin page is 192.168.1.1, although this is not guaranteed to be used by your router, so you're going to have to look up the specific make and model of the router that you use. Typically, you can just type this into an browser and it'll open up a admin page where you can see all the connected devices and their associated IP addresses. So let's clean up some of these files. So I'm going to delete this file, 1 GB. I'm going to stop the server. And let's start it again. It's going to prompt me for the permissions this time. And again, I want to ensure that public networks is allowed. So I'm going to allow that. And before I continue further, I'm going to set up Wireshark to listen on the communications. So because I'm no longer listening on the loopback address, I'm not going to use the loopback address. I'm going to use Ethernet 2 in my case, but that's going to depend on where you see data coming from. Port 3000 stays the same. And so now this is going to be my actual connection to the internet, and I'm going to now attempt to send the file over from my laptop. Okay, so now we are getting the messages from the laptop, and you can see that it's much, much smaller because we are not getting the full chunk size of 65,000. So there's a lot of fragmentation happening. So this will, in fact, take a while to upload from my laptop to this computer just because it's using wireless. Okay, so at the end of this, we should have a 1 GB size file. Meanwhile, we can see that the source address is 192.168.1.207, and that's where the data is coming from. That's where the IP address of my laptop, and 151 is where it's sending to. So each segment is roughly 1,000 bytes. We're not getting even close to that 65,000 size. Okay. So all the data has arrived. We've created that file again. And now we're going to go in the other direction where the laptop has set up the server. And we are going to send the file. So in fact, let's again reset this. And the file that I want to upload, input/1gb.dummy. Okay, so now I'm uploading from this computer to the laptop. That is on address 192.168.1.207. Okay, so we just saw one segment got lost along the way. And again, TCP is very resilient. It's able to handle that data loss and just do a retransmission. And so this one is a bit faster, but still not as fast as sending back to myself. The file was successfully uploaded. And so that's the end of the demos. Make sure you delete all these dummy files that we don't need anymore.